Council to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and
to the republic
for which it
stands one nation under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call, please.
President Van Poorfleet.
Here.
President Pro Tem Matheson.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Hobbs.
Here.
Councilmember Narsh.
Here.
Councilmember Ranville. Councilmember Rutt. President Van Poorfleet, we have a quorum, and we had prior notice from Councilmembers Ranville and Rutt requesting to be excused.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We have our item number 4 is presentations, and we have a fire department millage proposal. I see our fire chief, Mr. Rob Duke, is here. And are you all by yourself, sir?
I am. Supervisor Barnett was going to call in,
Okay,
but he's not with me here in the office.
okay.
So
And would you like to start, or would you like us to postpone for a brief?
we could postpone for a few minutes if you want, but I'm ready if he doesn't pop in here shortly.
Susan, could you bring up the agenda on the screen and has their presentation, please?
Okay.
There's Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Just in time. We just introduced our fire chief, Mr. Robert Duke, and township supervisor, Mr. Chris Barnett. And this is presentation 1, fire department millage proposal. Which one of you gentlemen would like to start first?
Yeah, so I'll jump in and then I'll turn it over to Chief Duke here in a moment. I've got a thing going on with my ears, so if I'm yelling, just give me like the quiet down sign and I'll talk quiet. I can't only hear my own voice. It seems like I'm screaming. Is that okay?
You're good.
We appreciate the opportunity to present to the village council. As you probably are, hopefully you're aware, our fire department is completely funded by a millage. We have had 2 millages up until this past year. They both have expired. And so we're just going to kind of give a high-level presentation as to what we're asking for. We're looking for a 6-year millage. I'll let Chief Duke get into the details and explain why. We're asking for a slight increase. And we're hopeful that the village council is able to get any questions they have answered and ultimately support our efforts here. Our fire department, as you know, we have 1 fire department for the township and the village. It's challenging when we ask people for taxes, and we realize that and understand that. But in the last 6 years, this fire department's gone from having just 5 full-time employees to now being a fully staffed 21st century fire department. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Duke, and then I'll sit and listen and chime in as needed, and then we can both answer any questions that you might have after the brief presentation. So, Chief.
Thanks, Chris. Village Council, good evening. Thanks for your time this evening. So, as Chris mentioned, just a high-level overview of what we're recommending for our upcoming millage on August 4th for the election. So currently on the left side of the screen, you're seeing our current revenues, which is 1.92 mils. That equates to the Headley rollback as well. So we've started BLS transport. That's been ongoing now. So currently you can see those revenues that we're generating for a total budget this year in 2020 of almost $6 million. Our expenditures, personnel costs obviously remain the highest at 2.8 million. Operating costs to operate all 4 fire stations, including apparatus maintenance, repairs, uniforms, etc. 850,000, and the administrative building that we added on to here because we are growing and we were in need, that was $600,000. So as I mentioned, we are recommending 3.0 millage. And as Chris mentioned, it'll be over 6 years. That'll give us sustainment at least for 6 years. Full revenue generation at 3 mills brings in almost $5.7 million. We're asking for or recommending the 3 mills to hire 9 more personnel so that we're able to fully staff station number 4, which currently is not staffed at all. Also of interest, at least to the village, I'm a statistics driven kind of person. So station 1, that's what services the village. It runs on all of our calls in general are 80% EMS or medical runs. Station 1 in particular runs on 52% of all the fire department calls. So last year we had 3,141 calls, and that's in a subsequent slide. So as I mentioned, the revenue's at 3 mills. And then you'll see currently our EMS delivery model. Right now in the middle, there's Orion Township and our surrounding mutual aid partners around us all provide advanced life support, and we're the only BLS or basic life support transporting department amongst our mutual aid partners. So our average response time is 6 minutes. To get private EMS or advanced life support or paramedics, it takes about 10 minutes. Unfortunately, they're coming out of Pontiac most of the time now. They're not staged here in the township. Again, the recommended millage provides all 4 stations fully staffed. That would give us 10 personnel on staff every day. And it does provide advanced life support to the community in 6 minutes or less. And that's obviously that meets the NFPA goals. So that's what we're looking to do as well.
And if I can just chime in here for a moment, if you're curious why we're so different, first of all, we rely on STAR. It says private EMS. STAR EMS is the private EMS company that we work with. They provide great service to our residents. We just know, and our board unanimously supported almost 3 years ago now, kind of heading in this direction of being sort of self-supporting. It's been a good relationship with STAR EMS, but as Chief Duke mentioned, oftentimes they're pulling ambulance cars from Pontiac, and when we have serious medical incidents, our firefighters will render CPR and first aid, and matter of fact, they receive, the men and women on our department receive life-saving awards every few months. So they know how to do that, but they can't administer drugs and they can't transport severe patients. So it's kind of taking us to the next level. The good news is we, even a year ago, we didn't even provide the basic life support transport. So now we can at least do that. We can move some of the non-life-threatening patients and not have to rely on that third party. And again, it's all about the timing, right? So when we went through this with the chief, when we first made the decision, when we hired Chief Duke, that we wanted to continue to shift towards ALS, we had all our board members do this drill where they breathe through a coffee straw, and some of them couldn't even do it, but simulating shortness of breath or someone who's struggling breathing. And when you put them on the clock and get to 4 minutes when we would be there, or 5 minutes, and then say, okay, now breathe for 5 more minutes while we wait for the advanced life support unit. It was kind of an eye-opening exercise. So a lot of our residents don't know this, frankly, and that's a good thing because they haven't had to use the service. But we want to continue to sort of evolve, and that's why we're sort of pushing this direction. So Susan, if you could go to the next slide, please.
So what we've done is we've laid out a proposed capital plan for the length of the millage, which was 6 years. The important things to note is like our fire apparatus. We no longer have a capital millage here. Our fire trucks are pushing 24 years old. And you can see we've done our due diligence. We've done a strategic needs assessment. We've done a fleet audit survey. The township board has seen those. So these are the things in terms of equipment that we need for the next 6 years. We've looked at replacement really up until a few years ago. There really wasn't much of a replacement plan thought out for longevity, obviously, because the fire department was new in terms of being full-time, offering a full service all hazard department. So what we did here is we went through this for the next 6 years, looking at all the capital items that need to be replaced, typically by National Fire Protection Association standards and OSHA standards, as well as MyOSHA. So you can see that, and basically equates to almost $1.1 million if you average it out over the 6 years. But that'll give us a strong apparatus fleet. And really, in terms of the apparatus, we're trying to right-size the fleet in terms of having the correct number of fire trucks, so we don't have too many, but we have enough in case one were to break down. So we need to have like a fire truck in reserve, same with an ambulance. So we're trying to right-size the fleet and be cost-effective for obviously the residents in both the township and village.
And you can see we're adding ambulances as well along there, which will, as part of our ALS transition. The other thing I'll note is, we've had simultaneously 2 millages until they both expired. But we had a operational millage was originally 2 mills. It's rolled back by Headley to like 1.9-ish, 1.92, I believe. And then we had that 0.6 mil capital improvement millage. So those combined were just under 2.6 mils total. That's why we're saying that our board made the decision to kind of combine operations and capital into one operations and capital millage instead of having 2 separate millages. So the overall increase is a little under half a mil, what's being requested. But that's one of the things that we did different because these are ongoing needs. Our most of our fire trucks are 1996. We did get rid of the ladder truck, which was a 1974. That was replaced in the last millage. But now you'll see that we'll be replacing some of the engines, some of the other things that Chief mentioned. Thank you, Susan. If you could scroll forward, that'd be great.
So basically what we did is we put together a projection from the last 10 years. You can see the call volume is continuing to increase. So from 2010 till currently, and we're projecting 3,600 calls this year, but we've seen 124% increase in calls for service over the last 10 years. And it equates between 5 and 8% each year in between. So we are getting busier. Right now we're averaging about 10 calls a day, which is up. Last year we averaged about 8 to 8.5 calls a day. So right now we're averaging 10. Some days a little bit more. But like I said, the calls for service are going to continue to increase. It's certainly not going to plateau anytime soon with all the building and the draw that comes out to Lake Orion and the township. So that's a good thing. But then again, inherently, you get more calls for service as well. So we also put together our surrounding department comparables. You can see Orion obviously is into the right there. Based on population, calls for service, number of fire stations, and full-time staffing. So Orion really, next to Rochester Hills, obviously we have our next comparable is Independence Township, and they're about 2,000 population less than Orion Township and the villages. We're right on mark with them this year in terms of calls for service. They about 400 calls more than us last year. We're right neck and neck with Auburn Hills as well. So like I said, you can see just from our local comparables, the demographics and calls for service. So also what we've done is we've looked at the surrounding department millage comparables. Currently we had 2.48. So with the operating and the capital, as Chris mentioned, so the capital millage expired, was not renewed. So we're at the 1.92 operating mills. And again, we're recommending 3 mills. And as you can see, the comparables around us. I did speak with Chief Schultz last week from Oxford Township. They were initially, when I wrote 3.5 mills, I spoke with him. Now they're going to ask for an additional 1 mill. So they're going to go up to, well, if it passes, 4.5 mills. So even looking at everybody else, we've looked at the dollar value compared to the millage. We're still going to be far under the millage rate, and giving a better service and having just overall, we'll still be one of the lowest mills within our mutual aid comparable groups. And like Chris mentioned, it's a pretty high level overview. We didn't want to get stuck in the weeds too much, so we just provided just the highlights of the millage.
Yeah, so we'd be open to any questions that anyone might have or comments.
I have a couple.
Go ahead, Kenya.
Yeah, thanks. Chief Duke, curiosity, where is station number 4?
Station 4 is on Baldwin, just north of Clarkston by Friendship Park, and south of
Okay.
Indianwood.
I noticed in the capital plan, you have 150,000 for a rescue boat.
Correct?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. I'm thinking that Orion is the only lake that you might service that has homes on islands, but there's probably still a need to access boating accidents, I would have guessed. Is this a first time thing for the fire department?
It would be, yes. From my understanding, we did have, it was on the news last week, but we had a deer that we rescued along with the DNR. We had no means of getting to it. So we ended up borrowing 2 kayaks and putting on our wetsuits and kind of walking out to get to it. So as far as I understand, we've never had a boat. So we've looked around at different variables in terms of what type we would need. Besides Lake Orion, I know we have quite a bit of water here and we have no means to get to anybody. I know Chris can speak to that probably better than I can.
Yeah, I mean, and I know Chief Narsh, former Chief Narsh, still he's the chief, and Chief Rossman probably could speak to it as well. But we have many habitable islands on Lake Orion that there's no way to get to them but by water. And Victoria's the largest with 12 homes. It's one thing to, most of those residents understand that if they have a fire, it's going to be defensive by the time we get there. But even even any sort of medical incident, to have to rely on, and we've been grateful so far when we've had to go out to these islands that we've been able to quickly commandeer private citizens' pontoons and things, but to be able to have a means, and then also for larger events, for example, the fireworks, which, as a quick aside, thank you so much to Chief Rossman for his amazing work on pulling that off last week. He spearheaded that whole effort. But any large events on the lake, dragging on the lake, to be able to have medical personnel on the water in a fireboat, fireworks when you have thousands of people on the water. So, Chief Duke brought that idea to us. Chief Smith, former Chief Smith, retired Chief Smith, had talked about it in the past, but we never had a way to do that. So it's something I think we should consider at some point, and it's being considered as part of this millage ask.
And this is a pumper boat then, evidently, as well as a medical rescue.
Correct. It would feature dual purposes. So there would be a pump on there as well. The boats that we've been looking at and seeing what our neighboring communities have, this would be really kind of unique because it's almost like it's called a lake assault boat that we looked at. It has a front down drop door. It has remote master stream, so we could pump large volumes of water right from the lake, as well as hoses that we could take off, to go to a house or something like that on an island.
Sure.
So it is
40
dual
years ago-
purpose, multifunction.
Yeah, 40 years ago, there was a pontoon that the fire department had that would pump. Anyways, so roughly about 1/2 of a mil more, I think it's 0.52, which translates to about $50 per 100,000 in taxable home value.
Yeah, so that's right, Ken. A $200,000 value home that you could sell for $200,000 in real high-level terms, it would be about, so the value of the home is 200, the taxable is half that, 100, and so yeah, the increase is about $52 a year. And by the way, the average value of the home, including the village homes, the township and the village, last year in 2019, in the entire township, including the village, was $202,000. So that's a really good estimate to say the average homeowner would see between a $50 and $60 increase from what they've been paying for fire millage, should this be successful. About a buck.
Yeah, great. Any other questions from anybody? Comments? Gentlemen, we thank you for your presentation this evening. And if you have anything last moment you'd like to say something, please do now. Otherwise, we'll move on to our next presentation.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, Ken and Joe and team. And we really value the great working relationship that we have right now, led by Ken and Joe, and Chief Ross was doing a great job as well. Lieutenant Toth has high praise for the chief as well. So grateful for our strong working relationship, and thanks for the opportunity for us to kind of get in front of you and let you know what we're working on here. And if anyone has any additional questions or wants to ask us more questions offline, or have residents asking questions, I fielded some on Facebook today regarding the DDA capture. By the way, that's an interesting point. The DDA capture on this new millage, if it's successful, is about just under $100,000 a year. And so there are some residents that live in the village that are asking, you know, every time we have a millage and we have to put all that language together talking about the DDA capture, it inevitably raises lots of questions. And why is the DDA getting money from a fire or police millage? So we've been trying to field those questions the best we can. But, you know, that's the way tax capture districts work. It's not unique to our millage. So if you're getting that question, that's the easy, short answer. It's state law that governs that. If they have more deeper dive questions, you can direct them to Chief Duke or myself.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for the presentation. Chief Duke, thank you for all you do. Please tell your staff we appreciate our fire department.
I will. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have
you,
a good meeting. Yep.
Right. Moving on, item 2 on presentations. We have a new public works director that is doing a heck of a job already. I see him out there at 7:10 a.m. standing alongside the road, looking at the project on M24, keeping a watchful eye. And Joe, would you like to introduce
Yes.
our new DPW director, sir?
Yes, joining us here for his first Lake Orion Village Council meeting is Albert Farrow. He's our Public Works Director. He started on July 6th, and he brings with him a wealth of experience of the years. He's worked for a number of communities, most notably the city of Auburn Hills, where he was there for 13 years. He has a vast range of experience in water, sewer, streets, lift stations, landscaping, concrete, asphalt. I'm sure I'm missing some. Oh, bridges.
Yeah, bridges.
Which all fit into our needs. And Al has before him quite a bit of challenge to address our various maintenance and operation needs. And he brings a wealth of experience, and he's a great team player. And I know he's helped inspire our DPW workers, and they're looking forward and are working with him very well, and with me as well. And I know he's going to be known out there in the community, and we want to welcome Al to our community, and we're thankful that he's here. So Al, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to comment on.
No, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity for all of you. I know I've met you through the interviews and in crossing, but I'm looking forward to a great future with the village, the upcoming events, projects. So you'll see me out and about and handling the situations and complaints as they come in. So I'm very proactive. So we'll get them taken care of. So
Very good.
I appreciate it, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow.
Thank
Al,
you.
when we interviewed, one of the comments I gave later on was how great of a community we have and how welcoming our people are, and the experience that you will have while you're here. And are you already feeling that, sir?
You can't even imagine. I used to come into the village as somebody from the outside visiting your restaurants, and I just love just the hospitality, the friendliness, the cleanliness. So I am feeling that. Yes, I am.
Yeah. Good, sir. Well, we look forward to great things as we all move forward together.
Absolutely. And I'm looking for the same.
Yeah.
You got a great group. You really do.
Good.
Good job. Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Farrow.
Thank you.
Your office hours are from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. any day?
Any day. That's right. Any day.
Good answer. Thank you, sir. All right. We'll move on.
All right.
Presentations, item number 3. And thank you, Mr. Young. Agenda item request for 318 Bellevue. Mr. Young, would you like to start this out, please? You're muted, sir.
Yes, I am. There we go. All right. Yes, Council Kathleen Clausen at 318 Bellevue had asked to be added to the Village Council agenda. She's here this evening to speak before you regarding a matter she's dealing with.
Thank you, Ms. Clausen. Welcome to join us this evening. The one thing that I would like to suggest, if you could try to maintain the 5-minute, because I've had council members over the years ask me to try to maintain that timeline, but welcome. And what would you like to talk with us about this evening?
Okay, so this goes back to 2018 in September. Roughly, I had applied for a building permit. I had been approved. We moved out of the house. We were going to demolition the house. And in between the time we moved out and when my soil and erosion permit became into effect, my neighbor, 322, Mr. Edgar, gave permission to a landscape company and apparently a electrical company, and they basically bulldozed my property. So I sent you some pictures. You can see the whole back of my yard was just totally gone. They brought in big rocks. They were all strewn all over my property. We came back with my builder, and in the process, they just had everything. It was gone. There were no landmarks. Took my flagpole, all the landscaping, everything was gone. And they cut the seawall. So the dirt was going out through the seawall. The stake had fallen over. So I called the police. Police came out and said there's nothing we can do and left. That it's a civil matter. The property, there's no question of property line. Mr. Edgar had Kennedy and I had Chemtech. They're spot on an agreement of where the property line is. There's some other pictures there of there's 2 areas, one up by the house. You see the rocks were there, and basically those rocks, half of them were on my property, and the sod was also on my property. They bulldozed, they threw some seed down, and basically I sent a letter, or I sent a text to the Edgar saying, you're on my property, you need to get off. And I got a letter from their attorney. I filed a lawsuit. I just want to make note that I had a topographical survey before I started, and afterward, after Mr. Edgar graded my property, pushed some of my dirt onto his property, so it actually shows the difference of what occurred. So I took him to court because he wouldn't get off. He agreed to get off. Finally, I had to negotiate my costs away. I did not get all my costs to get him to agree to get off. So he was supposed to get off, but he never got off. So this is now 2020, and more recently, I had Mr. Jeff Howes excavate it. I had to work a deal with Superior Scapes, take them off the lawsuit, and they cut the rest of the rocks, which were underground. Mr. Hall picked them up, put them on Mr. Edgar's property. We pulled out all the electrical and the rest of the sprinklers. We didn't cut them. We just picked them up, put them on Superior Scapes. Previously, I called the police department because we came out on several occasions. They kept taking down my silt fences. But on this particular case, must have been an electrical company or somebody come on, because they pulled some of the electrical and left the silt fence down. So I did call the police back again. He continues to park on my property. They use my seawall or my steps. The biggest issue I have right now, there's 2 areas. You can see the one down by the lake, and it's certainly not to code. It's right on my property. When the rocks are cut, they're only about 12 inches wide. So on the left, where you see sort of that, the surveyors up there, those rocks, I don't even know how steady they are, so that my property could actually at some point just fall into his because there's nothing holding it up. I'm not sure what's holding up his property at the back. And then up by the house, that's not to code either. And if the rocks are off right now, I did send a link to when they originally came down where the soil was just falling off. The reason we stopped building was we didn't know where the soil was going to stop. We didn't know how much he had excavated, but you could see my excavated soil that he did just falling. And so there was real concern it would fall to his house. We didn't know. So to try to keep it to the 5 minutes here, and I know Mr. Young's very familiar. I think every time he saw me comment, he wanted to run the other way, but there is a picture of where we're currently at, and it shows that area is not to grade. I really don't know what the grade is anymore because we don't have solid dirt. It's because he excavated it all and then we had to go back in. So the reality is where we're at right now is up by the house where he took the rocks off. You can kind of see we moved his sprinklers over onto his property. Again, they kept falling in when the excavators were there. And we're now not to grade. And I'm certainly, first off, I did make an outward effort to his attorney, to my attorney, to tell him, you can work something out with Mr. Howe to put your rocks or do whatever you need to do there or get them off your property. Because once I grade my property, you're not going to be dragging those rocks, and he's landlocked. So he refused. He's still refusing. He puts up a sign that says that his property's unsafe. It is unsafe. He's got fall rifts all over it. There's, his young sons are in their 20s. Their friends are there. They're 20. They're, drinking beer. They're all over. That they could fall off that back piece. Now that's on his property. But if people are at my house and somebody chases a Frisbee and walking backward, they're just going to they could end up right at the bottom of that drop off. Up by the house, I think what we've kind of decided, because now my grade is wrong off my property, that we're going to put some railroad ties there and build it up. The problem is once I build it up, now I'm sort of creating a fall risk on his property. Okay. And, I don't know what he's going to do with his rocks, but I got to build it up because otherwise my property line is incorrect. So I guess what I'm looking for is, first off, some direction up there. He dug it all out. There wasn't some other pictures.
Excuse me, could I interrupt a moment? Who's our administrator? Is it you, Ms. Glishka? Who's our administrator on this WebEx right now? You're muted.
Okay.
Can
Katie.
you turn the camera off on Mr. Ryan while he's doing his gymnastics and his workout?
Oh, we can do that. I did not
Please
see
do.
that. I will take care of that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's awesome.
All right.
I'm sorry for the interruption.
No,
But,
I was noticing him. But so here's the bottom line. He's got two areas. He should be to code. He never got a permit. I went over 1 year to pay my taxes and found out that he had applied for a retro permit. And I said, you can't give him a permit. Those rocks are on my property. Okay. So he held off on that. To my knowledge, he's never gotten a permit for this. I don't know if any of his rocks are safe. They abut my property. So if they go down, my property might go with it. Now, where
Okay.
I'm building and putting areas, I'm going to have inspections, and he's never had it. So we're going to put some railroad ties there. I'm not putting his rocks there. He's not to code at the lake or on the bottom area at all. And so I'm asking that, if he wants to keep that, that's fine, but then he should fence it in or put some safety areas to take care of it and make sure that the township, the ordinance, makes sure that whatever he put up there is safe for my property because he dug out my property as well.
Okay. All right. You started to say what your point was as to what you're looking for, because everything that you've talked about so far appears to be a civil matter. And what
Well,
would you like the
I don't know why it's a
village council to
civil
do?
matter, because we have ordinances where if you're gonna grade, you need permits. He has no permit. Okay? So without permits, it's in a civil matter, yes, I understand that if there's a property line dispute, yes, you go to court and determine where the property line is. This is about obtaining permits when he graded. You're on the website, if you grade and do a big project like that and put in electrical, you're required to pull a permit. He never pulled a permit. Okay, so whether he has safety issues on his property is quite different than just a civil matter.
Okay,
Okay, and
so
I have to figure out where I'm putting my property line, and it's been all dug out by somebody that never had a permit to do so.
okay, so your request is to verify if a permit was obtained by Mr. Edgar for landscaping purposes.
Correct, and that he's the code. He said when I did take him to court on a civil matter, of course, I told him he agreed to get off, which he didn't do. Okay, he partially got off, but he also agreed in that settlement that he would put things to code. This does not look like it's to code, and I would think the village should be the one to determine whether somebody does things to code. I know if I do something on my property, I'm not expecting Mr. Edgar or my neighbors to have to enforce the code by taking it to civil court. And that's apparently what's happening here. You're not enforcing code.
Right,
Code
so
or permit.
we will verify the permit, and code is monitored and reviewed by code enforcement officer, but more importantly, we contract with the township for building code official support. And so that would be the other end. We've
Well,
got our
they
chief
told me
on the line here, Mr. Harold Rossman. He's listening and watching,
that-
and he will go to work and verify all that starting tomorrow, unless you already know.
Okay, what I'm saying though is the township tells me that the ordinance officer and that it's up to the village to determine whether it's not code. And you're telling me it's the township. So somebody needs to figure out who's what, because nothing happened.
Okay.
So I'm
Well,
not sure why, because he should have pulled a permit and he should be to code, and he's neither. And he agreed at least to be to code.
We'll verify.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So I guess my question would be on the side here, since I pulled a permit, okay? And this is where I said, and this is what I submitted to you, I think even in my building plans of the topo, of where the grade was. So I'm putting the property back as close as I can get to where I believe my best effort to where my property was, my grade, okay?
Sure.
So I don't want the enforcement officer to come to me then and say that, I've done something wrong. We're trying to do the best we can here under the circumstances. I'm not creating a fall risk there. I'm just putting my property back to where the grade is, and the fall risk was created by Mr. Edgar when he excavated the whole side of his house there, his whole easement. And I'm not sure you're even allowed to excavate an easement like that. So that's another issue. Because
Okay.
that is an easement between the homes. And I'm not sure by permit you can excavate like that. It's a whole separate issue.
We'll check into the permits. I'll ask Mr. Young to get back to you as far as your request as to whether or not your neighbor has a permit to do the work that he's been doing. And your topos should be your guiding document for moving forward, like you had suggested. And I think that may be it right now. Is there anything else?
No, that's it. Do you have any
Okay.
other questions for me?
No, I'm I'm apologetic that you've been struggling with this from 2018. I always wish that neighbors could work well together. And
Let
it's
me say this.
difficult
I
when it
have,
doesn't happen.
I have never done anything to him. Okay. I didn't go cut his sprinklers. I didn't throw things at his house. Okay. I've never done anything. I'm not
Yeah.
sure why he was not charged with destruction of my property. That's the other thing I think you need to look into, because he destroyed my whole backyard. He cut the fence, he excavated my property, and for whatever reason, there was never any charges against him. If I had done that or my kids had done that to his property, they'd be in jail right now.
Did you
So
file a true police complaint on that?
I did. Several times. I think with Chief Narsh was on, I spoke with him, I spoke with Mr. Young. I went
You
back.
signed a document.
Complaint.
You actually had a document that you signed that was a violation notice that you had, correct?
I'm not sure. I called in and they came out and I made a report and I asked that they file charges. So that's all I can tell you. If I was supposed to sign another one, I can certainly come in and file.
But
But
they don't, but they wouldn't file charges. You would. They take the report. You would use that report.
Okay.
It's a civil matter.
I spoke with Mr. Narsh several times and said I wanted to file charges. He told me he wouldn't file charges. That's what he told me.
Correct. It's a civil matter.
Okay, so that means I have to go to court, okay? But it shouldn't be necessarily a civil matter, because, you know, when the police come out, they arrest you or they do whatever and nobody would do anything to him. So it is, I mean, it's 2018. I'm not sure where this is gonna go. There's some other issues that may come up here. We're not done yet. I wish I could say we were done, okay? And
Right.
I do need some protection because he constantly just comes on my property, uses it, does whatever, and I call the police and they just leave.
You need to
Okay.
file charges. I'm suggesting if that's what you're
So I
looking
will
for.
come in and, I'll come in and I'll file a whole lot of charges. I'll be in tomorrow. I'll just write them out.
Thank you. Thank you for visiting us this evening. And we have a couple items we're gonna get back to you on.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on. Call to the public. Anybody from call to the public?
I have no emails.
Consent agenda. 14 items on our consent agenda this evening.
Move to approve it.
Support.
I would like to pull item 4, which is a special event permit for Brave the Wave 2020. It says 2029, but I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
If the rest of the council wouldn't mind.
Move to approve the amended agenda.
Amended support.
Okay, we have 13 items. Number 1 is CARES Act Fund Distribution Agreement with Oakland County. Number 2 is resolution for the redevelopment community, the RRC. Number 3 is playground equipment purchase. Item 4 that we're going to pull, the special event permit. Item 5, Lake Orion Police Department Gowling Car Show August 1st. Item 6, Ordinance 16.19 Consumer Energy Franchise Ordinance, first reading. Item 7, BZA reappointment of Dr. Brenton Balo and Mary Chika Crawford to 3-year terms, and we thank them for their past service. Item 8, traffic control order number 2020-02, no outlet on Converse. Number 9, traffic order number 2020-03, no parking Bellevue section. Item 10, traffic control order number 2020-04, hidden driveways at roundabout. Item 11, receive and file police department reports. 12, approval of village council regular meeting minutes from June 22nd. Item 13, Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting draft minutes from June 4th. Item 14, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee regular meeting draft minutes, June 23rd, 2020. We have a motion and support. Roll call, please.
Narsh,
Yes.
Van Poortvliet,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Matheson,
Yes.
Hobbs.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. And can we talk about the special event permit Brave the Wave right now?
Mhm.
Okay, when I read the documentation in there, and I spoke to Mr. Young about it today, and I'm in favor. I'll say right off the bat that I'm in favor of the event. I like the event. I think it's great for many reasons, all the way from the young people that have some additional participation here in an event in our community to it's a unique event, and there's only like maybe a handful of these that happen in the US of A, and we're lucky to host one of them. The questions I have on the event is, as I had read, and it was a little bit confusing because it looked like things had changed. There was documentation that kind of had additional information upon the documentation. But do we know, Mr. Young, who is going to handle roping off the lake? It doesn't say that in there. Is that their responsibility? Is our police department, or is it Lake Orion Lake Association partnering with them?
I'm not sure they've done that the same as they have the past 2 years. I don't know, Harold, if you know offhand if we assist them. I don't think we assist them.
I trying to think back to last year. I thought we did. I think former Chief Narish, if he's part, he might remember on that if we did or didn't. I know we do help with buoys on some of the water events, and I can't remember exactly, but I can probably find it out in a few minutes.
Councilmember Narsh.
Actually, they do this event themselves. They provide a medical boat as well, with a diver and a actual surgeon on board in the event there's a crash. But they also do their course. They set their own buoys and they remove them. They are familiar with the requirement to remove them as soon as the show is over, so they're not navigational hazards. But this event, they do it themselves because it's very specific to the race.
On packet page 75, item 5, alcohol sales. The sale of alcohol by licensee at premise number 5. I do believe, and Mr. Young, you were going to check, there's no alcohol sales, correct? You're muted, sir.
All right. Yeah, alcohol sales.
Okay, so it doesn't apply.
No.
Okay, I just want to verify. And then the other thing that I am curious about is it said that there will be launching of jet skis at the north end of Greens Park over the seawall. Is that inaccurate? Is that intended to be done?
They're to use the Lake Street launching area.
Okay. No launching. It's just going to be a staging area that they'll do there in the water. Okay. And then going back to that alcohol on page 78, then they have no liquor liability that they have to provide to the administrative requirement. Okay. All right. That was the only couple of clarifications I had, sir. I will make the motion at this point then to approve the special event permit, since I've got those 2 items clarified.
Support.
Any further
I'll support.
discussion? Supported by Councilmember Narsh. Any further discussion? Okay, great. Roll call, please.
Hammond,
Yes.
Hobbs, excuse me,
Yeah.
Matheson,
Yes.
Narsh.
Yeah.
Van Poortvliet.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you. All right. Moving on to approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Supported by Mr. Hobb. Motion by Mr. Matheson. And there are no changes at this time. Roll call, please.
And Portly,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Narsch,
Yes.
Hobbs,
Yes.
Matheson,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And then the next item is item 8, public hearings. Item 1, ordinance number 6.23, tobacco regulations. Mr. Young, sir.
Yes, council, tonight we have a public hearing, it's a second reading and adoption scheduled later on the agenda for a tobacco-free area ordinance that is to protect the public health and welfare by regulating tobacco in work sites, public places, and certain other areas, specifically village public parks is what it addresses. It addresses it for enclosed areas as well as outdoor for public parks.
I'll open the public hearing at this time. Would anybody like to speak regarding the tobacco regulations ordinance number 6.23? Ms. Galiska, do we have any emails pertaining to that?
No, we don't, President Van Portly.
Thank you. Hearing none, I'll close the
Ray
public
wanted-
hearing. Mr. Young?
I believe Ray wanted to say something, the council
Oh,
member.
Mr. Hammond, sir.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I was curious about people smoking. You said tobacco. There has been, in my observation, along the Paint Creek and the park down there behind the church, there's a lot of smoking. There's also marijuana smoking going on down there. And a lot of times it's teenagers, and teenagers are going to be teenagers. Are we going to actively enforce this within parks? Or are we going to advise people not to do it? What are we going to tell, our police department to do with this? What are we going to ask of our chief and our police staff to do if we pass this ordinance?
Mr. Young.
If you look on page 162, the violations and penalties are being asked to stop smoking or using tobacco or marijuana products and being asked to leave the premises. And it is a civil infraction. So just to let you know that legally, that's what the ordinance provides. And Chief Rossman, if you want to speak to how you will be instructing your officers to handle these matters.
Yeah, reference, Councilman Hammond, reference, I believe you're talking about, are you talking about Meeks Park?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll periodically go, we'll get calls on the young people out there. And my officers and even myself, there have been times that, because marijuana smoke will stay up present for a while, and even sometimes cigarette. It's not to say it's hit or miss with that, but again, since they're kids, they're under the age of 18, we would be definitely enforcing that. We just haven't caught them yet. And if the officers smell marijuana smell, okay, then they can investigate further. But I know that I've gone down numerous times where somebody would call that they were smoking down there, and I couldn't sense any, which I'm a non-smoker, which marijuana smoke and even tobacco smoke just jumps out at me.
Sure.
So it appears that either they see us coming and take off, the ones that are doing it. But no, we'll strictly enforce what we need to enforce. I think there was somewhere along the line, especially for the adults, I think in that order is, I think we can also do maybe a verbal for the adults kind of thing. And warn them, that you just can't do that here. And I think in the beginning stages, I think that might be appropriate since it's something new. But we'll definitely take enforcement action.
So Greens Park, Children's Park, Meeks Park, I think places like that will get active enforcement.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We have guys now that'll walk. They're told to do foot patrols. Even there's been talk of possible alcohol use, maybe even in Greensburg Park. So I've asked the guys to step up their patrols in the parks, and
Yeah.
even park. There have been possible small alcohol bottles found in Children's Park. So I told the guys to step up the patrols on foot patrol. And
Yeah, I've seen the guys on bicycles too, and I think that's a really good approach for some of our park areas. But I was just curious as to what you felt about enforcement. Is it going to be a passive thing where if somebody's really obvious about it, or will we be looking for it and going out of our way to enforce it? Not creating special patrols just to do that, but I want to make sure if we're going to pass this, we stick to it.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. We'll do our patrols. It's one, either it be complaint driven, or while we're on patrol, but we won't, it's like anything else. Unless it's a huge problem, it'll be more or less while on patrol that we come across it, and or complaint driven.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Young, could you check? I know we have signage down there saying no alcohol allowed, XYZ, that it's updated to include tobacco and what would be in our new ordinance, so that we provide an educational opportunity, so we don't constantly keep hearing, well, we didn't know.
And we will be putting signage up once the ordinance is effective.
Okay. No 2x3s, please. All right. Anyone else? All right. So that's the public hearing. Close the public hearing. And we're going to move on to the agenda items for consideration. Invoice, register, and bill approval. Mr. Young.
Yes, council, before you have checks that we wrote on June 23rd in the amount of $27,693.51. Also on July 7th of $10,878.56. And then we have an invoice registered dated July 9th in the amount of $687,626.18. And that includes the payment to Fontana Construction for the water main project of $437,412. If you have any questions on any of the items, I'll try to answer them.
Mr. Matheson, sir.
I move to approve the bills paid June 23rd, 2020 in the amount of $27,693.51. Bills paid July 7th, 2020 in the amount of $10,878.56, and the July 9th invoice register report in the amount of $687,626.18.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Hobb. Additional questions, challenges? Roll call, please.
Hammond. Hammond,
Yes.
Hobbs,
Yes.
Narsch. Narsch. Okay. Van Poorthwait,
Yes.
Matheson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on. Other items. Number one, social district permit. Mr. Young.
Yes, council, for this evening, we have a new law that was passed by the legislature, signed by the governor on July 1st, that provides for more outdoor dining, and in this case, commons area for consumption of alcohol. Provides communities the opportunity to consider designating a social district, which within there could be what's called commons areas, where if the businesses meet the requirements, you could carry your alcoholic beverage in that commons area, which could be out on the sidewalk between the businesses, or could be a open area outside for the consumption of alcohol. It's intended to the goal was having this law passed was to get more people comfortable coming downtown and enjoying and dining and drinking while they're there in the downtown area. So kind of make it an open forum kind of event with certain restrictions. In your packet is the permit form that deals with creating a social district, which I'm suggesting, for example, in the case of the village, it could be from Shadbolt to the north down through Broadway to M24, and then taking Flint Street from Lapeer to over to Anderson, which would include Front Street. And that would include 2, 4, 6, 9 different establishments that serve alcohol. The permit, though, requires that there be at least 2 similar permittees in an area where, as we best understand, it means it's not to cross a street or public transportation area. So in the case of the village, for example, we're not sure, but we believe, for example, that in one block, for example, we have Anita's Kitchen, Sagebrush Cantina, and CJ Sandbar. So that presumably could possibly be considered a commons area within that district. Likewise, there is a possibility, for example, of Oat Soda, Valentino's, and Wine Social perhaps could be, even though there's a park in between, but they're in the same quote block. There's no street crossing in between them. Bitter Tom's and American Legion, they're on the same side. There's 2 of them. Again, there's no street between them. So it's another possibility. The other 2 establishments, 313 Pizza Bar and Fork and Pint, are alone single establishments in a given block. So I don't believe they would meet that criteria. At this point in time, the only party that I'm aware of that's expressed interest in having us create a social district and a commons area is the Wine Social, who would like to expand their service area to include a section of 20 Front Street, their outdoor patio area. I'm not aware of any others who've expressed interest. I did ask our Downtown Development Authority Director, Executive Director, Molly Alone, to reach out to some businesses. I don't know if she's got any feedback or any input at this time to share with you regarding any interest on any businesses. I don't know, Molly, do you have anything?
I do. I was able to talk to the owners of CJ's and Sagebrush in that quadrant, and they both are interested. I was able to talk to the owner of Bitter Tom's and also to Dennis Miller at the American Legion. They are interested. I talked to Doug Young and Jason, Doug Young from Wine Social and Jason Peltier from Oat Soda, and they are interested as well. I left a message with Joe Wegerson from Anita's Kitchen, but I haven't heard from him.
So on this process, council would by resolution need to designate a social district that would need to be approved by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. And that within those, once that's approved, businesses could apply to be a permit to be considered a commons area, as I understand it. So I don't know if the council would be wanting to consider passing a resolution authorizing that we proceed and submit a permit to the LCC, subject to meeting all the various requirements, to at least submit it for consideration. Our village attorney, Mary Kucherik, suggested that since it's not precisely clear in the permit or the legislation how this would work, because it says contiguous to. What does that mean? Next to, adjacent to, or on the same block? That's an unknown, at least that I'm aware of, and that's something that she suggests we clarify. I see Councilmember Narsh may have some input on that.
Mr. Narsh, Councilmember Narsh is currently active with this in Holly and has some information to share.
Yes, Council, it's my understanding that contiguous means 25 feet. And that any municipal public property can be used and designated, including roadway or crosswalk, to make access to commons area as long as the street governing body, in a township, that would be the road commission, but in the village, it would be village council, were to authorize that zone. So it's kind of flexible in what the village can do. They can have a consumption area, but in order to connect all of the businesses, you'd have to connect all the sidewalks, designate specific crosswalks within those public right-of-ways to connect the entire downtown to those zones. The contiguous area is 25 feet, so the property would have to be within 25 feet of the actual zone. And most of those businesses abut the sidewalks. If the sidewalks were designated, they would all be okay. And if you've got 4, as Molly said, that have already expressed an interest, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. I think you did it right. Find the businesses that have an interest, designate the zone, because you don't want to have them file. There's a $270 application or a $250 application fee and a $70 licensing fee. And you don't want to have them pay that if the zone isn't there. So I think in order to benefit the businesses during COVID, we have to create the zone and then they'll purchase the permits.
I have a question.
Mr. Hobb.
What about empties? I mean, are they carrying bottles, cups, a combination of both? You know, how is liquor transported around town? You know, as they're walking?
Mr. Narsh, Councilmember Narsh.
In these zones, you cannot bring packaged liquor or bottled or canned liquor. The SDM, SDD rules do not apply. This is Class C tavern and club type license only. They're in the to-go cups that have been authorized. That's where the governor signed those 2 bills in concert. It has the name of the business that sold it, that it's an alcohol content, and only the licensed establishment agencies can consume in the designated area. Someone not inside or not licensed inside that area can't bring alcohol in. So it's very specific, and it kind of makes the dietary as well.
I spoke today with a member of the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. And for the most part, a lot of what has been said is accurate about the contiguous and the social district permitted zone. But it still has a little bit of unclarity in my mind. And I think that if we were to do this, we should submit what we would like to see and see if it flies. There's no clear answer to some of the questions I asked today. They really designed it to be left up to the municipality. And part of that being left up to the municipality is, because I was also told, be careful of what you might look for and design, because your local police have to be the watchdogs. They're the ones that need to follow through with guidelines in the districts that we create. They're the ones that will have to patrol it. And then the second portion of that is trash. The trash will need to be picked up and disposed of and handled by the municipality. It's not the restaurant taking care of their people's trash. It's going to be us. And so there's a couple of little things that we need to take in consideration there. I know that 20 Front Street would love to see us be proactive and assist them with some needed funds. And we have that going on in our community in different businesses, restaurants as well. There's a positive there. And the contiguous property, I didn't get a good answer on that, but I would suggest that if we were to use like the sidewalk along Children's Park, Councilmember Narsh had said we need to designate what sidewalks, what crosswalks, X, Y, Z. that we could, without using the sidewalk, we could use the first 8 or 10 feet, which brings it up to that railing or that fenced area that is decorative, that would still allow some contiguous effort. My first thoughts were that the only two places that really would work well would be Valentino's Oat Soda, CJ Sagebrush, and Anita's Kitchen. I'm not sure about the rest, but I'm just throwing that out there as just my opinion. Chief Rossman.
Yeah, I got a question, Councilmember Narch. And I just saw this, and I'm sorry, Mr. Young, we didn't talk about this earlier, and it just came to me. What about, is there a noise, now where your social distancing is, are there residential apartments in that area? I'm just kind of concerned with how late are we going to keep that open? Because again, with drinking, a lot of people yell, they get real loud. And I know we've got the Burwood, we've got some residential apartments also. And I know in the past we've had noise complaints downtown. So I'm just kind of curious with your social area, the residential mixing with your social district. I'm kind of concerned how late can we put a cap on how late they can do this. That's just a little concern that I have. But
My understanding is that this is totally up to us as far as times and hours. It could be like it doesn't go past 10 p.m. It could only be Friday nights. It could be a number of different ways that we could set this up. So we just target specific times, not a free-for-all 24/7 every day of the month. I did have one resident say to me, wow, that would be like having the Jubilee every day. And I don't think so. I'm sure none of the council members want that, as well as our public. Councilmember Narsh.
Yeah, and really the intent of the legislation, the design behind it to spur the downtown, assist the businesses and restaurants, is kind of the lunch and dinner hour. The idea is that there's a lot of folks that don't want to eat inside of a restaurant, so they can get their food to go into a consumption zone. Let's designate the alleyway on tables in there. That can be a consumption zone. So people can grab food, they can grab some drinks, they can go down there, it's lunch and dinner, and then you can shut it down after that. That's the intent. Really the impetus behind the legislation is to spur folks that would not normally come downtown because they're afraid of going inside businesses. Now they can feel a little safer and be outside. So really the community can do anything they want, but it's really the lunch and dinner hour, and then you can shut it down.
I would like to clarify. I believe when Councilmember Narsh is using the consumption zone, he's suggesting common area as well. Because that's really, in my mind, is a difference. The common area is a sit-down area where you could be served or your food could be brought to you. It's not where you would place a bar. It's just that you could have your product brought to you and you could consume it there. Is that accurate, sir?
Yes. And you can designate, again, the areas in front of those businesses. You could designate the pocket park there on Flint Street. You could actually pop some tables, and the people that abut that, the businesses, they could serve in there. So any area that will accommodate that business that where they abut that zone, it's my understanding that they can serve and
Right.
Both food and drink.
We could set a timeline on this, and it's completely revocable anytime. We have the power of just saying, oh, it's not what we thought it was going to be, and we can stop it. It doesn't require a lengthy notice or anything like that. We have the power to exercise it as a opportunity to see if it really works for a stimulus or not, and shut it down if it doesn't.
And one other thing, Mr. Van Portly, is Council President Van Portly, is it's not just necessarily stop, but each municipality has the power to modify at
Correct.
any time. So instead of just shutting it down completely, you can modify it based on all the experiences each community has, and you can change as you go.
So what would we like to do at this point? Mr. Farrell, sir, did you like to speak?
No,
Oh.
so, no, I do, but, so like you're saying, we can shut this down at any time and make adjustments as we go, correct?
Correct. We could make it smaller, change zones,
Okay,
modify.
and like Molly was saying, it's more of, sagebrush, the wine, and what other businesses does she contact?
Well,
Did they
she has
reach out?
talked to Valentino's, Oat Soda, Bitter Tom's, Sagebrush, CJ's, American Legion has interest, Doug Jones from the Wine Social, I already mentioned that. We've heard from 20 Front Street, and I know that the 313 Pizza Bar
Mhm.
would like to see anything that would create some additional stimulus or opportunity, and Fork and Pint. So it's pretty much
Yeah.
all participants. All of our restaurants would like to participate.
Yeah, 313, we were looking, I was kind of browsing back there when we were doing some work in the parking lot behind the business, so I think that'd be a great opportunity. And it's safe. They're, going down Flint Street, you got traffic going back and forth. They're not sitting right next to the, traffic also, so maybe that's an option.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Young, what would you suggest as next steps? We need to further hone a district. If we could do
Okay.
just a general vote as to whether or not we're interested and want to participate might be a suggested motion. I think that's what you're looking for, correct?
Right. Well, on page 181 at the bottom, it tells you what we need to do in order to file to create a social district, which means we have to have a resolution that designates what the area is. And then we have to have a management plan, including, as you mentioned, the hours operation, et cetera, and then a map.
And what about a public hearing, sir? I'm
That's-
always in big favor
That's
of
an
getting.
option. It's an option to do that. There is a public hearing requirement if we are to revoke a license, which is right above that section. It does say that once you get a permit for a commons area, that we can't revoke it unless we've had one public hearing on the revocation. But the license itself just requires a resolution with the operation maintenance plan and a map, from what I can read.
And it has to be submitted to
LCC.
the Michigan Liquor License Control Board.
Yes.
Mr. Hobbs.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest a public hearing for the residents' sake, like Chief Rossman brought up. Sorry.
I'm always in favor of a public hearing. Question is timeline. Sometimes those things can take 30 more days.
Our next meeting is July 20, 2 weeks from today, which wouldn't give us enough time to publish it technically, right, Susan? Because it wouldn't be in the paper until next Wednesday, and we need at least 10 days. I think it's
I
15.
can't connect. I'm having trouble internet. We will not have enough time to publish it for the next meeting.
No, so we could do a meeting. Special meeting August 3rd. Otherwise, our next regular meeting is August 10th. But it's probably August 10th.
Mr. Young, how many days does a public hearing need to be notified? How many?
It's
15?
15. Susan,
So,
it's 15 days.
There's no
Or 10.
requirement.
Oh, is it?
15 unless it specifically says.
Oh, so it's 10.
So 10 would be added.
10 days is 10 days is the minimum unless otherwise specified longer.
okay. So I'm going to step back and just say, although I had stated earlier that we can modify and revoke. Right there is a case where if we were to try to take somebody out of a commons area, it's a minimum of 10 days before it could happen, probably 12, not an immediate revocation. So, what's council's pleasure? What would you like to do?
If we put it in the open press,
Yeah, we could put it in the open press and that
that
would
might push it
expedite
up a
it
little. We
to
could maybe do it then
August
on the
3rd.
27th.
Oh, you could?
Well, because I could put it in tomorrow. I could get it in Thursday, I think. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 26th would be 10 days.
So we could have a public hearing
If
at
we
the
put it in
next
the open
regular
press.
meeting on the 27th in 2 weeks. If you'd like.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to move in here because I can't.
We also have a public hearing that night on medical and recreational marijuana, if you recall.
Well, might as well have a party that night.
Very good.
So we would need a motion at this time to create a resolution and a social districting map with common areas, correct?
You could give me direction to prepare one, yes, that we could have at the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, for the public to know what the intentions are.
right.
And Mr. Young, I would suggest that we don't make it this whole big block area that you currently have on this map that I'm looking at. Is this one right here? I would suggest that there's a strategy put in place as far as like some of the common areas that had already been mentioned, like the alleyway.
Well, yeah. Well, remember, you create a district first, and within the district, there are commons areas.
Right. Well, within the district, one thing I couldn't figure out today with the Liquor Control Commission, I was told that the people are allowed to walk with the drinks in that district. So that means that somebody could get drinks and walk out the back of the 313 Pizza, stand by their car, finish their cocktails, and drive away.
If that's what the rules we want to have, yes, it could be that.
If that's the area and district we want to.
Right.
And so we have the opportunity to make sure that we provide for the safety and welfare in our community by how we set that district.
That's kind of why I was suggesting that the commons areas be on a given block as opposed to walking across the street to other areas.
Ms. Malone.
I'd be happy to work with Police Chief Russman and Joe Young and anyone else who's interested in trying to create something that's thoughtful and everyone would consider safe to present at the public hearing.
You can count me in, Molly. All right.
I'll
Oh,
participate
thank you.
as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody care to consider for public hearing, a motion for public hearing, or creation of the social district with designated common area? Mr. Matheson, sir.
I'd make the motion for both of them.
Supported by Mr. Hobb. Comment, question? Mr. Young, I'd like to suggest that before we take a vote, that we just all stay tight on this and make sure that we communicate all of our thoughts and ideas the best possible so we come up with the best plan. although there's 5 of us that will be working on this together. Molly, Joe, Chief, Mr. Farrow, DPW Director, myself. Let's stay tight on this so that we all are aware of what we're doing and where we're going with it. It could be a mistake, a big mistake if we're not careful on how we plan.
Okay.
Mr. Narsh, Councilmember Narsh.
Just a comment, I was looking at the social zone map, social district. If we're looking at just sidewalks or encompassing that whole area, I hope it's just the sidewalks. You don't want children's park in there. If it's just the sidewalks in that park zone, that's one thing. But I think the group that you have selected can adequately come up with not only Councilman Van Portfleet, President Van Portfleet's concerns about being next to the parking of vehicles, but I think you guys will come up with a good district. And I think it's worth a try for our businesses and our downtown in a difficult time right now.
Keep in mind, what we submit may not get accepted, but we'll see how this works out. All right, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Matheson, supported by Mr. Hobbs, to create a resolution and to create a designated social district zone with some common areas. And along with that, there would be the criteria of duration, time, and use. That's where our chief and our DPW director can really weigh in. So we thank you.
Did the motion include scheduling a public hearing on July 27th at 7:30?
Yes. Yes.
Affirmed by Councilmember Matheson, the motion maker. All right, roll call, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Narsh? Where's he?
He's muted.
I think he turned me. Narsh?
Yes.
Hammond?
Yes.
Van Portfleet?
Yes.
Hobbs?
Yes.
Matheson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. I'm gonna try to get it under the way.
Thank you. Item 2, request for bike night, 313 Pizza Bar, Mr. Young.
Yes, Council 313 Pizza Bar would like to have a bike motorcycle night starting tomorrow night, July 14th through September 22nd from 6 to 9 p.m., where he would be limiting to 100 persons as required under the current governor's executive order to park on spaces along his building on the street parking for that time. He's submitted his proposal in your packet and it's for your consideration this evening.
I'd like to add that in the proposal, there's an A and a B option. There is an A for the front of 313 Pizza Bar and across the street, and a B option with the front of 313 Pizza Bar, and then alongside of the adjoining building on Anderson Street for parking of the motorcycles. Also, if you might notice in the recommended motion, it does say governor's directives as may be changed, which is currently at 100 persons for outdoor events. So if the governor says next week that we've moved to phase 5 and gatherings can be as large as 250, then this event can double in size. Accurate, Mr. Young?
That was the intent of the motion, yes.
What about, what if it doesn't work, much like the earlier discussion we just had about the social district? What if we find that the event is not working for the community? We've already agreed to host it all the way until September 22nd. what's the cancellation consideration or the revoking the permissible permit or revoking the permit, excuse me. Does that take a 10-day public hearing as well, or?
And Councilmember Narsh had a comment, I believe.
Member Narsh?
Well, it wasn't about that. I was just going to weigh in that I kind of was at the beginning stages of this with some of the guys I know that ride bikes, and the idea came up to do this, and they're pretty successful in a lot of communities. And what they do is you back the bikes in to the curb, so you get like 3-4 motorcycles per parking spot. So you're not using a whole lot, but then it creates almost as not like a car show, but you know, the folks that ride motorcycles, such as myself, some of my friends, they back up and then they would visit area establishments in that area. In this case, 313 is holding that. We'd be at 313, not to exceed 100 persons. They usually have a pretty good draw. I know some other locations in the community have them. You know, most of the people that ride bikes are folks like me. I don't know if that's good, that show up at the events. And a lot of my friends, they're fairly quiet. They go inside. The difference is they're not coming in their car; they're coming on their $20,000 motorcycle. And it's just a night to show off the bikes, go inside, have something to eat, a drink, and go home. So they're usually pretty quiet. I've seen them in other communities. I've attended them. They're pretty good. I mean, we don't expect the Hell's Angels, but
They still around?
I mean, they're pretty quiet, and I think anything that's problematic, Drew and the ownership at 313 probably step in and assist. But it's just another thing downtown to maybe spur a little growth in a difficult time.
I will say that we have other motorcycle enthusiasts on this virtual meeting right now. Council members and administrative staff as well. So, anybody like to entertain a motion?
I make a motion. I don't have the paperwork in front of me. I apologize, but I make a motion that we adopt the bike night proposal as submitted.
Support.
That would be to approve the 313 Pizza Bar request as requested for Tuesdays from July 14th through September 22nd, 6 to 9 p.m. with a limit pursuant to the governor's directives that may be changed. Currently set at 100 for outdoor. Mr. Young.
I believe Doug Jones had a question or comment. Is he, can we unmute him?
From Katie that his hand is raised.
Can we unmute him? Doug, did you have something?
What? Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Like, why can't we all just get along?
And use common sense.
Yeah.
I just take the race out of it. If there were people on your front lawn and you felt threatened, you're allowed to brandish a weapon on your property and tell us when to leave.
And the Black Lives Matter people were threatening.
Hang on a minute. Let's mute this a moment.
Yeah.
Susan?
Right.
We have 2 meetings going on.
And they had.
All right. Mr. Young, why did you say Mr. Jones wanted to speak? What did it indicated that?
I was advised that our monitor saw that he'd raised his hand.
I had my hand up previously, Joe. That may have been what you saw.
No, he had a blue hand up on his screen during the talk
okay,
about when you guys were talking about the bars and having the outside alcohol area.
All right. I'm going to let it be. Let's move on. Any other questions, comments? We have a motion on the floor and support. Roll call, please. Who is the administrator of this meeting?
Susan is having trouble getting connection on the laptop. I apologize for the inconvenience. Just roll call.
Okay. Hobbs,
Yes.
Matheson,
Yes.
Narsh,
Yes.
and Portfleet,
Yes.
Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Moving on, item 3, second reading and adoption ordinance number 6.23, tobacco regulations that we just previously had the public hearing on. Mr. Young.
Yes. Council has indicated, this would provide for prohibition of smoking cigarettes, marijuana, or vaping in any enclosed public place area, and particularly it's designated for outdoor for village parks, public parks, anyone in a public park that would not be allowed to smoke, have any tobacco products,
Entertain a motion.
including marijuana and vaping.
Does it have to say marijuana in the ordinance here?
Good.
It's in the ordinance.
It does on packet page 204.
Okay,
Division 2, restricted smoking and use of tobacco and marijuana products in village parks and beaches.
Make a proposal as submitted for the smoking ban.
Support. I'll support. Motion by Mr. Hammond, supported by myself.
Did the motion,
Discussion? Roll call. please.
As written, Joe.
okay, very good.
I got a Chief Ross in here. Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Joe, I just dawned on me. What about hookahs?
What about hookahs?
Hookahs. I didn't see them. I didn't see that in here.
Well, item on page 201, it speaks about vaping, but no, it does not speak about, I don't know if the hook is considered.
I would assume that covers any device that would be used for vaping or smoking. I mean, if someone's sitting at a picnic table with a bong, I would expect that they would be in violation.
Okay. I just was thinking. Didn't see it.
hookah looks like a bagpipe.
If that's your strategy, Doug, good luck.
With smoke coming out of it.
Yeah.
Mr. Hammond, would you like to just make that slight amendment that does include hookahs, because it doesn't say that. It's in the definition, but it's not in the actual ordinance.
I guess I would add the language that any mechanical device used to enable smoking would be included in our ordinance.
I'll continue with my support.
Thank you.
Additional discussion?
Maybe we should say mechanical or glass device.
Or glass art.
Or just device, and that leaves it up to the officer's interpretation.
Right. And
I don't think we'll have any problems with it.
I maintain my
Speak of.
support. Roll call, please.
Go ahead.
Matheson,
Yes.
Narsch,
Yes.
Van Poortvliet,
Yes.
Hobbs,
Yes.
Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Employment contract, Public Works Director, Mr. Young.
Yes, council, before you, we have an employment agreement with Albert Farrow as our new Public Works Director. Sets the standard language as all the other employment agreements we have with our other non-union employees. Since you have, it's been reviewed by the attorney.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the Public Works Director employment contract with Albert Farrow and authorize the village manager to sign the contract subject to review by the village attorney.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Matheson. Motion by myself. Discussion? Questions? I look forward to Mr. Farrell and a great working relationship with him. And I know that he finds us acceptable at this time. So good stuff.
Yes,
Win, win, win.
absolutely.
Definitely.
All right. So roll call, please.
Narsch,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Hobbs,
Yes.
Matheson,
Yes.
Van Portfleet,
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Farrell.
Thank you.
And again, a very heartfelt thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Asphalt paving contract, item 5, Mr. Young.
Yes, council, before you this evening, we have an asphalt paving contract for a variety of locations, seven water main or service line repairs that we've had this past year where we need to restore the asphalt. And then there are approximately 15 sections of roadway that we've identified as deteriorating to the point that we need to take action to either mill 2 inches, mill and fill 2 inches, or we're looking at an overlay as a possibility.
Right.
And that if you could mute when you're not, if you're just listening, if you could mute, that would help feedback. So we did send this out to bid. We did get 3 bids. The low bid was Gibraltar Construction Company, came in at a bid of $92,222.83. They've been verified by Albert Farrell, our DPW director, that they are references check out very well. They've been highly recommended by the road commission, and matter of fact, they're readily available to start within the next week once this is approved. I am asking also that the council approve up to a $6,000 contingency, so that should we determine there are other areas nearby as we continue to do this work, that we would add it while they're there to make that section of the road as best as possible within the dollar amount available. So I'm asking council to approve the contract and authorize the manager to sign the agreement, and to also authorize up to a $6,000 contingency that would be funded out of the lead fund. Part of it, 60,000 of it. The other water main part is the 27,134 is from the water fund. If you have any questions.
I've talked to several references, like you said, Mr. Young, and I feel very good going with this contractor going forward with the asphalt. I'll be working with him very, very closely out in the field daily.
The only question I had was, I know we had purchased a asphalt hot box, I think a year ago.
Right.
And I'm going to trust completely in our new DPW director, who has experience in this field of asphalting, that what we're contracting for is above and beyond the scope of the DPW. Because, and that's one thing I asked Mr. Young, gosh, we bought this hot box, how come we can't do some of these areas and save a little bit of cash? And maybe that might change in time as you get some additional experience in working here with our group and so on and so forth. But I just bring that up because there's a lot of spots here that seem like they're relatively small, like 4 foot by 2 foot.
Right. Well, and that's why just being out there with them, I can determine if those areas are something they should do or we should do. How severe are they?
Right, in the future. Yeah.
Right.
Good.
And there are, as I drive around, I understand driving in a car, it's a little bit different. I park, I walk a lot, especially seeing reflectivity in the roads and whatnot. And there are certain spots that we are going to get this hot box out. the first week I was just kind of sitting back and just observing what we have to do the work, so I feel that we can do the work. There's no question about it. There's some of the edges are breaking up. We can do so that's why I want to work real close with this contractor, so I can determine.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Entertain a motion?
So moved.
No, we need a motion first. I don't think we have a motion at this point.
No, Mr. Matheson just moved it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Brad.
No problem. Sorry.
Support.
Who supported?
Was there a second yet? Oh, Doug is.
Doug? Thank you, Doug. Okay.
Supported by Mr. Hobbs. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hammond,
Yes.
Narsch,
Yes.
Van Portfleet,
Yes.
Hobbs,
He's made it.
Matheson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Last item on our agenda this evening, Green Park Sidewalk Contract. Mr. Young.
Yes, the agenda was amended to add an item earlier today, but this is a new sidewalk construction for Greensburg that the Parks and Rec has had on their wish list for projects for a number of years. We did receive 8 bids on this project. It's 200 lineal feet of 5-inch sidewalk that will encapsulate the beach area and connect the 2 sides of the dock, and it will be accommodative to accessible for those people in wheelchairs. And it'll go along with the equipment council previously purchased or approved this evening to go with it. So the low bidder was KMI Road Maintenance at $7.50 a square foot, a total of $9,000. And our DPW director, Al Farrow, did verify the references regarding this. We're very happy.
What?
So
Go ahead. Who let the dogs in?
That was
All right, okay. Okay, so anyways, the only question I have, Mr. Young, about this is, I know a lot of people think concrete's concrete, but was there a spec on that concrete? Like, we're not getting half gravel and half concrete, are we, or half cement? There's cheap ways of doing this and the right way to do it.
right.
Agree, Mr. Farrow?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I was talking to Joe about this, the specs. What was the specs again, Joe? It was with the depth of the base.
5 inches.
5 inches. Okay. I mean, the concrete doesn't have to necessarily be 5 inches thick.
I believe
So
that's what I read. Yep, 5-inch concrete.
yeah, I mean, we can go 4 inches.
I'm just curious about, sometimes if they put too much stone in there, it can spald.
Right.
And it can do that in a matter of 3 years.
Yeah. Well, and there again, it's called a hot load, but just if a cement truck sits for a long period of time, the concrete will just be like powder. So, and we have to watch the temperature. If it's too hot, it's a bad idea to pour concrete. So, and there again, under my supervision, I'll be out there watching what comes out of the cement truck. Okay. So, I'm going to ask if they can put a vibrator in the concrete, which will bond the concrete a little bit better. So there won't be voids in the concrete. It'll definitely make it stronger. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, longevity. Good.
Exactly. So
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Greensburg sidewalk construction bid from KMI Road Construction, the amount not to exceed $9,000, and authorize village manager to sign a contract subject to the review of the village attorney.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Matheson. Additional discussion, question?
I have a question, Ken.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hammond.
Can we postpone this work till after Labor Day so that we don't disrupt Greens Park, or is it something that you'd want to do right away?
The Parks and Rec Advisory Committee want it done as soon as possible.
Okay, all right. I was just a thought. I based on what Al said and temperature and,
yeah,
you know, if we could wait till after Labor Day when there was less traffic and probably lower temperatures, but if they want it done now, I'm done.
and the contractor, you know, I did touch base with them to see where they are as far as availability. And this contractor is basically, you know, ready to start.
Okay.
So, you know, that's another positive thing, but it'd be something more or less, you know, I can communicate with them and say, you know, in the morning, it's obviously cooler if it's a hot day, you know,
right.
So if they could pour early in the morning, that would kind of, you know, but in the middle of the day, if it's 95, I wouldn't recommend it. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Entertain a motion.
We have a motion.
We have support. Roll call.
Roll call. Matheson,
Yes.
Van Portway,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Hobbs,
Yeah.
Narsch.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on, call the public.
No.
We have a add-on item, the water main change order. You know, did we give him a hard copy?
We didn't approve that on the approval of the
Sent
agenda.
them all updated. I don't have to give them hard copies. I sent them updated agendas and packets.
It's on the updated agenda. You need to bring a copy of it into you, Ken? Oh. All right.
All right, I can punt. Okay. So the approval of the agenda before was the updated agenda, not the council president's previous agenda. Okay. All right. So item number 7. Go ahead, Mr. Young.
Yes, council, for consideration this evening, we're asking a change order to the water main contract with Fontana Construction. The change order is to fill in a gap of water main that we had not previously replaced. It's between Heights Road and on Bellevue up to Unger Park. We believed at the time, we thought that was ductile iron pipe. But when they went out there and found that it was in fact cast iron, which is much more brittle and what's we're replacing throughout the village. That one section is 1,155 feet long, and that would incorporate all of Heights Road and all of Bellevue, which also incorporates Central as well. So it would incorporate the entire length of that water main project and would vastly improve the flow and also reduce the amount of any possibilities of water main breaks in the future. The estimated cost for that 1,155 feet, which by the way, the contract does have the pipe on hand to do it, is estimated $188,270. Our engineers, HRC, have reviewed it and have determined and verified that we do in fact have within our $6 million bond issue sufficient funds. There was a contingency of $350,000 in the bond issue, and we have not exceeded that is available. Some of it has been taken up by our engineering firm because the project has taken more days than what they had anticipated. But we still, with this change order, will be under the $6 million issue. So I'm requesting council to approve the change order with Fontana in the amount not to exceed $188,270. If there's any questions on it.
Mr. Narsch, council member.
I was just curious, Joe, what size is that You said that was cast iron. What size is that pipe?
8-inch.
And
It's
we're replacing it with an 8?
Yes. Yes, that's the standard that we've been replacing.
I'm sure that Mr. Farrell has his eye on this, as he has on all the other things happening in our community. And right now, Fontana, our contractor, is there. And I often think about if we would decide not to, and if we had to later, what's that expense? So it's a little bit of a rock and a hard place because they're there. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Entertain a motion. Mr. Hobbs, did you have a question, sir?
Oh, no, I had my hand, I'm just holding my head up.
Okay. Okay. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mattson, supported by Narsch. Additional comments, questions?
Did
Roll
they
call,
have a-
please.
It's a move.
But they didn't vote.
No, not yet.
Oh, I thought he said, okay, sorry. Who moved it? Brad?
Brad moved and who seconded?
Who
By
seconded
Narsch,
it?
Mr. Narsch.
No. I can't see their faces enough to know who's there. Are we ready for a vote or no? Are we ready for a vote?
Yes, we're waiting for roll call.
Okay, sorry. Van Portfleet,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Hobbs,
Yes.
Matheson,
Yes.
Narsch.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I'll go back to the call to the public. If there's anybody that would like to speak on non-agenda item, and Ms. Lalone.
We have.
Hello.
No.
I
You're frozen. You are not progressing.
Well,
Molly, I think your computer just froze and you may need to reboot. And I hope that you can come back on. And I apologize for not receiving your comment. Oh, I see that you're working on this. Let's start with the council. You know what we'll do? Molly's probably got a comment and we can go on to, is there any other call to the public items? We'll go on to council comments while we wait to see if she can re-enter. So I'll begin with Mr. Matheson.
I am all set tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Hobbs, thank you.
No comment.
And Ms. Rutt's not with us. Mr. Narsch.
Only comment is Al, welcome to the team. And I think you're going to find working with the department heads here is a blast, amazing. They're supportive. Your police department, DDA, everybody, the downtown business owners, everybody in town. It's just a great community. We're glad to have you. And
Thank you.
I was real impressed with the interview process. And I think you're the right guy at the right time for our town. So welcome aboard.
Thank you. And that's I think this came to me at the right time in my life. So I'm in a very good place and I'm very excited to work with everybody. In the interview, I felt it amongst every single one of you. So I'm very pleased, very happy, looking forward to a great future with, everything. So if there's anything, I want to build good relationships, stay positive, especially with what's going on today. So thank you again.
Great. Mr. Hammond, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say also welcome to Al, and a couple of my neighbors want to thank him for getting that telephone pole off of Jackson Street so quickly. finding, if the rightful owner comes along, maybe you can give it to them and they can put it back together. But
Right. Hey, yeah, and we have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. The guys did a great job out there. So.
Well, I know Joe's been trying to get that taken care of by the owners and they've not stepped up. So
Hey,
good job. Thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I just have a couple of quick things. I want to say thank you to our hardworking Parks and Recreation Committee for the sidewalk, the new improvements. There's going to be a couple of the old playground pieces over there removed. They're working hard, and I appreciate every one of them. I wanted to just also, in the council packet, it shows that we have an ordinance officer hours of 345 in the year 1819, and in 1920 we had 195. And I know that our chief has just gotten 3 additional trained officers. There's a great improvement there. I spoke with Mr. Young about it. I have had citizens ask out there about what's our ordinance officer doing, where are they? Ms. Clausen even had a little bit of that in her conversation tonight. And so that's greatly improved, and I'm looking forward to bringing that back up to par. Is that accurate, Chief?
Yeah, President Van Poppel, yes, absolutely. And again, just so that council can remember that we were under for about approximately 2 months COVID-19. So we didn't have, we had one of our ordinance officers that fell ill, unrelated to COVID-19, but could not be around us. And also we did not have an ordinance officer on during the COVID-19. Also, so the officers, if there was any ordinance, things that popped up, we went ahead and took the call, and then we had to hire 3 ordinance officers to pick up the slack. So yes, we should be much improved.
Well, thank you for that.
I'd like to say something. Chief, I mean, outstanding work with the ordinance. I mean, I've only been here for a short period, and the communication with them coming into the offices and talking to them. I mean, just driving around, I've seen quite a few issues, and they're right on top of it. And they get the response, back from the residents real quick. So, great job on that, I would say.
Thank you.
And I wanted to as well welcome again and thank Mr. Farrell for the challenge, accepting the challenge. And you're in a position to greatly help our community. I hope you feel it, and I know you will.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And every second Friday of the month is Donut Day for the Village Council by the DPW director.
Okay.
And but no need to right now because we're in virtual status.
That's good.
All right. So moving on, Ms. Lalone has not rejoined us, and Mr. Young, it is your turn, sir.
Okay, just a couple quick things I wanted to let everyone know regarding the COVID-19. We have applied for 2 sources of funding through the state, through the CARES funding. One is for a first responder hazard pay opportunity that's on a first come first served basis that we did apply for. We'll see how we fare out on that one. We also have a provision that we can get reimbursed for our police officers' services during May and June, which we also submitted for. We also, through the county, with that agreement we approved this evening, we'll be able to apply for all the COVID-19 wages that we paid when people stayed home, the stay-at-home pay. We're looking to be able to hopefully get that reimbursed once we get the specific details. But at least at this point in time, they're verbally saying, yes, they will be reimbursing us for those dollars that we paid when people were not able to come into work. So just wanted to let you know financially that we're moving through this to get through. We did have a reduction in our gas and weight tax of about 30% in 1 month, but hopefully that'll be picking up. And our water and sewer revenues did not go down this last quarter, which I thought they were going to, but they did not. So that's a good sign for our water and sewer funds as well. So that's all I have for this evening.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Matheson,
Support.
supported by Mr. Hammond. All those in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. All those against? And thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening, Ms. Clausen. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.